We are live. We are live. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to everyone. And thank you so much for joining us for this another Friday Lunch and Learn. This is where we meet each Tuesday. Oh my, I'm almost saying each Tuesday, each Friday at this time, noon. And it's where we have those conversations. It's where we discuss a relevant topic that we believe is relevant to both life and leadership. Welcome in. If you are seeing us here, we are happy to have you. Welcome in to this Friday Lunch and Learn. With me today is Dr. Siegfried Howell. He is a life happiness and relationship coach and consultant. Dr. Ho will help men and the women they love to master those intimate and internal relationships in their lives, and help them to chart a course to better. And he's also a corporate trainer, and he's also a master life coach. And as usual, I'm yours truly, Dr. Janice Brooks. Here again, I am a licensed pastoral counselor. I'm part of the Maxwell team of coaches, speakers, and trainers. I pride myself as a life and business strategist because I believe everything in life requires a strategic approach. And so I help you with strategies to grow both your life and your leadership and your business. And today, as I talk about life, leadership, and business, we will be looking at a topic, and it is life and leadership. Hmm. Life and leadership, the power of intentional focus. The power of intentional focus. And when I look at this topic of intentional focus, I want to start off by just telling everyone to chart your own course and seek to take the road that is less traveled. Never get used to traditionalism. Stay away from it. Stay away from following the crowd. Let's look at it this way. If you see too many people going in the same direction, it's time to stop and think what is happening. It means that something is lacking. And most of the times, what is lacking is intentional focus. Who is stopping to say, check, check? Let's think about this. Why are we going in this direction? What are we focusing on today? What do we hope to achieve? And so today we want to talk more about this topic, the power of intentional focus. And Dr. Howell and myself discussed a little bit, and I'm going to have Dr. Howell talk a little bit more about it because we discussed this very important concept. It's actually a significant concept, and it's called the hedgehog concept. And the question was asked, what would you rather to be? Would you rather to be a fox or a hedgehog? And most people would rather be a fox because a hedgehog is just prickly and ugly and not the best of what they would want to be. But Dr. Howell is going to share more with us today about this concept because when we think about intentional focus, the question is always asked, what does that mean? What does intentional focus means when we hear or think about it? And Dr. Howell, I want you to shed some light on this matter when you think about intentional focus. What do you think about?
Well, you know what? As a relationship strategist, one of the things I think about is people think of relationships of just being intimate relationship or family relationships, but human beings are social animals. We're social beings. And what that basically means is this: wherever one person goes, other people follow.
Hmm.
And so we get lonely quickly when there's no interaction. And we tend to think that people are weird when they don't want other people around them. And so relationships are very important. But as you said, being an individual, your own individual, and not marching to the beat of the crowd is very important. Why? Because God has given each one of us a purpose for our lives. And there's something specific for each one of us to do in our life. So if we're busy following other people, we are going to run into difficulty identifying and executing our purpose in life. And so there is a concept that I was introduced to about 7 years ago called the hedgehog concept. And it basically asks of you 3 questions. The first one, what can you be the best at? So once again, we're going back to that individual mindset. What am I the best at doing? You identify what your talents are, what your gifts are, and what your purpose in life is. So you have to do some soul searching. Secondly, you ask the question, what drives your engine? In other words, what wakes you up every day? What gives you passion? What makes you excited? What makes you jump out of bed and not want to go back to bed until you have achieved a certain amount of goals or objectives for that day? So what is it that passions you? What is it that drives you forward? What is it that makes you just feel excited about life? That's the second question. And then third question, especially when you're dealing with business, is what can I make money with based on all of those things that I identified up high? Because businesses are about making money. So you can be focused on your gifts, but do it for free. Mm-hmm. You can be passionate about something, but it doesn't generate money. And so the hedgehog concept is, what am I the best at? So if your organization, what am I the best at? So if you look at Red Bull caters towards young people and athletes. If you look at IKEA, they make furniture for middle-class people who don't mind putting things together. When you look at Rolex looks for people who are trying to say, hey, I've made it in life. And this watch shows it. If you look at Mercedes, you're looking at people who want a status symbol. I have reached the upper echelon of my career, and this shows that I am the creme de la creme. And so you have to identify what can you be the best at. When you look at Target does not cater to Walmart people. Mm-mm. And so you have to identify your niche. What is it as a business that I can be the best at, that no one else can rival me in that particular area? So you have to first figure that out. And the hedgehog has figured that out, because the hedgehog has prickles. And the hedgehog says, hey, you're not going to eat me without a fight. I'm not going down without a fight, because I'm good at protecting myself. Number 2, what drives your engine? And so we're looking at, what am I passionate about? So if you're Mercedes, you're passionate about that drive. When I get into that car and I hear that engine roar and I feel that luxury and I hit a bump and it doesn't faze me when I'm in that car. When people look over at me and I look at them and I give that nod and they smile and they say, yes, you've made it. Some people are looking for that. That's what drives them. Some people want people to envy them. Some people want others to know that they've made it. Some people want others to know, hey, I am good at doing X. And so when you publicize what you do for your company, what is it that sets your company apart from everyone else? What is your mission statement? What is your driving thesis that everyone in that organization marches to? And then last but not least, like I said, how do you make money? And so we're talking about, what is your specific niche? Because BMW and Mercedes are both German cars. But Mercedes gives you a nice, smooth, luxury ride, whereas BMW gives you that sporty ride. And they're both on the same level, but they cater to 2 very distinct set of personalities. So you can be in the same market like Target and Walmart, but they're catering to two different sets of social classes.
Yes.
They're catering to two different sets of individuals, two different sets of mindset. So when you get into a Mercedes, you're thinking about a person who's calm and they want to ride from point A to point B in luxury.
Yes.
When you think of the BMW, you're thinking of a person who is trying to get there as fast as possible in luxury, but they don't care about that smooth ride. They want to get a boom, 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 that muscular feel. When you get a Maserati, you want to hear that engine. You want to hear that engine purr. You want to be seen. And so the hedgehog concept are three questions that you ask yourself as a company to identify where do you want to put yourself so that the specific people that you're trying to reach can see you, can identify you, and can harness internally what you feel your mission is. And I hope I covered that a little better.
100%. And you know, as you were talking, Dr. Howell, one thing that stood out clear is that there is and will always be an intention. When you talk about the Rolex, the Mercedes, the Target, the IKEA, and you name all of these companies, you literally hear the intention. They start off with an intention, and they're making sure that they place the focus on that thing that they want to achieve. And it brings me back, as you were talking, it brings me back to I've done some research on this topic, and just thinking back with the people that I have worked with over time, I see that there is this consistent quality that they all share. But I think back to one team member I had back a few years ago. And let me say that this was not an overnight phenomenon. And as you talk about these companies, none of them achieve what they achieve overnight. It was a consistent, intentional behavior that they took a hold of, and with no desire to release it. So I remember I had this team member, and there were 14 salespeople I had managing at that time. But one of them stood out, and I remember him clearly because I remember one day he said, "I'm only going to focus on auto loans." And I wanted to know why auto loans, because in those times, auto loans was not such a high value loan. I mean, if you get one real estate loan, then you probably quarter away your target, one good real estate loan. But he insisted on focusing on auto loans. I could do nothing to deter him. I just had to allow him to do what he was going to do. But, you know, after a while, I realized that this gentleman, his name was known at all the auto dealers. They called him by name. He met his target half year. He won and he kept winning. He was consistent. And just looking back at just a simple example like that, he kept his focus. He was intentional about what he was doing. He wasn't flip-flopping all over the place. And today he was on auto loan. Tomorrow he was on personal loans. The next day he was on real estate. He told himself that if I focus on this auto loan, it's going to be a sure fit. I am going to be able to make it in this area. And surely he did. He did his target 2 times over. By half year, he was done with that target and starting over again. And many times we tend to, as people, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the jack of all trade thing when I come down a little bit further, because as people sometimes, and especially as entrepreneurs and people who are sometimes young in the business, they want to take control of everything without any intentional focus. You talk about the Target and the Walmart. These are two far places in between, because when you go to Target, you're sure to get, let me not go any further, but they are intentional about what they do. You talk about the IKEA, you talk about the Mercedes, and the value that each of them bring in their different areas. And so let's bring it home to life and leadership. We must in life have an intentional focus. We cannot be going with the crowd at all times. We have to know what our individual purpose is, what we're called here to do, what we want to accomplish. Have a timeline. Have have a base where we're starting and where we intend to get to. And so, this intentional focusing, as you talked about the hedgehog concept, Dr. Howell, one of the things I read about this hedgehog concept that kind of jumped out at me, it talks about how the the fox uses many strategies to catch the hedgehog, but the fox would sneak and pounce and race and sometimes even play dead. But yet the fox never learned that the hedgehog only does one thing, and that was to defend himself. The fox is all over the place doing all different kind of thing, but the hedgehog was only focused on defending himself. That means he was intentional about what he was doing. And so it comes down to my second question, Dr. Howell, is what exactly how does this intentional focus drive us to success? How important it is to success?
Okay, well, so once you figure out what you're good at and what you figure out what you're passionate about, and once you figure out what you can make money at doing in an organization, now you have to figure out the process you're going to use in order to make yourself different or stand out or distinguishable from your competition. Because a lot of people talk about not inventing the wheel, but if there are a lot of wheels out there that look the same, sometimes you got to make your wheel look a little different. Put a little color on it, put a little music on it, put a little something to make it different, to make it stand out. And so for example, Toyota is, now I heard this from a mechanic recently. The mechanic was saying that the Japanese build a car and their mindset is people are going to dog this car and not do what they need to do. So we're going to build a car that will stand the test of time, regardless of how people dog it. And that's a Toyota, one of the most reliable cars in this country. But the mechanic said to me that when the Germans build their BMWs, they build a car and they say, and their mindset is, if you service this car the way we tell you, and if you drive this car the way it is intended, it will last a long time. And so it's two different mindsets. One says, we're going to give you quality because we know you're going to give this thing a beating and we're going to make it stand up for the test of time. And one other mindset says, we're going to focus on making sure that if you service this car when and how many times we tell you, it will last. So you have to figure, are you quality based as a company, or are you specifications based? Because if you're specifications based, then you might create a car that only lasts for 5 years, 100,000 miles. And then after that, everything starts breaking down. I know you're from Jamaica, and I know growing up, you had people who they had a refrigerator that lasted their whole entire lifetime and got passed down to generation. Now, in this country, it's hard to get a refrigerator that lasts 5 years. It's hard to get a washing machine. I had a guy come to my house to look at my washing machine. He was like, well, it's been here for 4 years and they're only made to last for 3. Why are people making products that only supposed to last for 3 years, and 2 generations ago, it lasted a lifetime? And so the mindset of a lot of companies have changed. So if you want to be successful, look at the limitations of your competition and make that your strength. That's how simple it is to be the best at what you do. Take the limitations of what your competition is doing. Make it your passion. Become focused at making that your passion
I have to write
and
that.
doing it well. And like the hedgehog, you do that one thing well, and then you stand up from the mountaintop with a bullhorn and let people know
Mm.
this is how I am different from the competition.
Powerful sentence right there, Dr. Howell. You said, focus on the limitation of your competition and make it your strength.
Yes.
So you are literally not going in the same path that they are going. You are using what challenges them to overcome, to make it your best. And
Yes.
as you talk about that, my mind went to Usain Bolt, and we all know that Usain Bolt is the world fastest man, as we learn it, and he's
Mhm.
widely considered in one of the greatest sprinters of all time. So, multiple world record, Olympic medals, and all of these things. But
Mhm.
when I think about Usain Bolt, I think about that Usain focused on two main races. I know he ran the relay, part of the relay leg, but I know he focused mostly on the 100 and 200 meter.
Mhm.
And it brings me to the point you just made, also where you said, focus limitations of your competition, make it your strength. I'm sure he had a main reason for doing that. And it brings me to the point of focus, because we have to first of all develop, Dr. Howell, our inner focus. And that inner focus, I believe it is our own capacity to really connect with our inner self, to connect with that grit and that fortitude and that determination and that resilience that is inside of us. I used to hear the story that when, if you were living in that area of the city at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., you used to hear Usain and the other guys, they would be at UTEC, a university playfield, and they would be training all from that time in the morning to morning. So they develop their inner focus through that training, through they develop their own grit, their own resilience, their own perseverance, and they develop an awareness of the strength that they have and the weakness, as you just mentioned, and how to use that for their own advantage. Then I want to think also about the outer focus. And many times this is what challenges leaders and many people in life, that outer focus. Because before they develop their inner focus, they start to develop their outer focus. And you have to develop your inner focus first. Because if you don't, you are going to get off track. And that outer focus, after you get to understand yourself and what is inside of you, and what you can do, what you have the ability to do, your own strengths, your own weakness, your own progresses. You talked about all of these companies, and I'm sure their strategic people, they looked at those things first, what they had inside of their business, what they could develop on, what they know were their best aspects of their business. And then that outer focus came into being, where they look at all the competition, the other part, the view of everybody else and what the others were doing, and they use that to improve on their strengths. And the last part of it I want to talk about, which um, we sometimes walk over, is the other part of focus, which is the part that covers things like our emotional intelligence, where we are able to perceive other people, the capacity to really empathize and be sensitive to things around us. Just like I started out where everybody was going in one direction, and having that thought to say, Why is everybody heading in that direction? Why is everybody going? I have a feeling that they're going the wrong direction. There is something that triggers you that says, no, something is wrong there. I feel sorry for those people who are going in that direction. Is anybody in that crowd realize what is happening? And that's the other outer focus that sometimes we need, because we just don't need focus sometimes for ourselves, Dr. Howell. We need to have this focus to be ordered to help others, because if we're only focusing for ourselves, then we would be on a path go in one direction and we see others go in another direction without having any concern for them, without using that kind of emotional and intelligence, that empathize, that perception. I call it the Holy Spirit, that intuition that tells us, oh my, look at what's happening around us. And that is why sometimes people may think that you are argumentative or you're always seeing things another way. But sometimes when I read something right away, my focus is triggered. Why is everybody saying yes to this? Is there another way? Is there another thing that is happening? Can we look at it another way? And I believe that's what Rolex and Mercedes and Nike and Target have used to their advantage. Everybody is going this direction. Can we look at it another way? And use that to our advantage, Dr. Howell. And that is how I see it. And it brings me now to the next question, because I know this is such an important topic for us to talk about. It's actually an excellent one. I want to ask you, Dr. Howell, because you are a great teacher, let me say, in this era. What is it that successful people are not so-called jack of all trades? Why are they not jack of all trades? The people who are successful, the Amazon, what's the Amazon director, the Bezos, the Bill Gates, the all of these. Why are these people not jack of all trades, Dr. Howell?
I will give you a couple of examples and then I'll explain to you why. If you look at Jeff Bezos, he started with books. He became good at online books. Once he managed that, then he went off into selling other things besides books. If you look at Netflix started their process on bringing you movies that were not possibly in your local VHS store. Because I remember I had a Netflix subscription and I could get 3 DVDs at a time. And whatever I couldn't find at my local video store, I would check with Netflix to see if they had it. And sure enough, because it was countrywide, they had access to those movies and to those programs that my local VHS store or video rental store did not have. And so they became good at supplying people with things that they wanted. Once they got that covered, then they branched out into streaming. If you look at Bill Gates, he provided computers with a program that made it easy for them to do what they needed. So if you didn't know how to code, you didn't need to code. He had a program already embedded, which was Windows, that allowed you to get what you needed. And he kind of stole that idea from Xerox. If you look at Warren Buffett bought Coca-Cola, and I believe the story goes he raised the price by the price of a can of Coke by 1 to 3 pennies, and it brought in millions upon millions of dollars because of the amount of people that buy Coca-Cola. So his thing was knowing what the market is doing and not raising the price to the point that people no longer want to buy the product, but raising it just enough that the amount of quantity sold would bring in tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so he was able to read the market. He was just good at that. Now, how did Warren Buffett become good at that? He said every day he sat and he read the financial part of the newspaper. He studied the trends. And he found out that when the market went down, it would always come back up. And not only would it come up, the height that it went up was inversely proportional to how far it went down. So if it went down far, it will go up even further. And it will go up so high that it will probably hit a brand new world record. And so, record high. So what he would do is when the stocks were low, he would buy when everyone was selling, and he would sit and wait to see how high it would go before he sold. So he made a lot of money by looking at the trends. Now, why is that important? Because if you look at, there's a book written by Jim Collins called Good to Great. And he talks about people are quick to fill positions that are empty. Oh man, we have one person down on our team. Let's hurry up and hire someone so that we don't feel this hurting as much. And he said, no. What you need to do is look at your organization as a bus, and the leader is the bus driver. And the bus driver's job is not just to get you to your destination, but to open and close that door, to let people on or off the bus. And he said that in his research, he has found that it is easier to hire someone who has no knowledge, but has a growth mindset, an open mindset, a malleable mindset. And we can teach them how the company thinks and how the company operates so that we can get them on board with the mission of the company than to get someone who is already educated, who is bullheaded, who thinks they have all the answers, and they agitate everyone on the bus. And so the companies that are the most successful are the masters of one thing. They master that one thing to the max before they diversify, because you have to be able to focus all your energy, all your resources, and all your power on mastering those three things that you're good at. Your talent, your passion, or what you can make money at. The hedgehog concept. Focus on that one thing that you can be the best in the world, or even the top 5% doing. And then do that like the hedgehog protects himself. And then and only then would you be able to be like the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gates and the Elon Musk. Now, there's a caveat that goes with that. And the caveat is this. Don't be so focused on one thing that you don't do your research to figure out that it's going the wrong direction, or it's the wrong thing that you're putting your focus on. You can be bullheaded and focus on the wrong things and still not be successful. So you have to do your homework. You have to do your research to make sure that you are focused on the right things for the right amount of time, and you're going in the right direction.
That's another power statement, Dr. Howell, because it cannot just be consistent action. It has to be consistent right actions.
Yes.
Because consistent action can take you to nowhere. You just keep going until you end up in a dead end. But when it's consistent right action, it's actually going somewhere. So that's a power statement there again for audience. Make sure the actions that you're taking are consistent right actions. And the only way to know is to continue to periodically assess the actions that you're taking. Look at your strategies. Make sure that they are taking you in the direction that you intend to go. We're talking about intentional focus, the power of intentional focus. And as we come down, and I want to thank our audience today for sitting in with us and for just following the conversation. I'm sure you will be grasping or would have grasped something from what we are saying or have said before. So, Dr. Howell, I am looking at another aspect of this intentional focus, and I'm thinking, how can this benefit us? And when I think about having that intentional focus, and I talk about the inner focus, where you focus intentionally on what is inside of you, and then you put that to the outer focus, where you are able to apply some focus, some perception on the people around you, what they're doing, and then the other focus, where looking in, looking out. Oh, there was a television station in Jamaica who used to have a advertisement that says looking in, looking out, looking even better. So when you look in, then you can look out and you can look around. But I believe that this intentional focus, Dr. Howell, it gives us clarity. When we apply focus, it gives us clarity, and it empowers us to better manage whatever challenges and crises that come up, because they are going to come. Anybody who is expecting that we're going to have a life without challenges and crisis, then that person better leave here as quickly as they want to, as they can, because life is made up of challenges. We fail forward and we continue and fail, and we continue and fail. And this intentional focus really help us to gain clarity. It helps us to better manage the challenges and the crisis. It moves us closer to success on a daily basis. It also gives us peace of mind when we are not jumping all over the place, when we have our focus on something, set our intention at the beginning of the day. This is what I want to achieve. I tell you, Dr. Howell, I went to when I traveled to New York last week, and we took a Uber. Nice gentleman. He's an Indian. And one of the things he shared, he was just talkative, and we shared while we were driving. And he said what he does is that he set an intention at the beginning of the day, how much he wants to earn for that day. And he said if he earned this amount of money by midday, he said, I go to the river and I sit on the riverbank and I just sit and meditate and I give thanks, and I don't continue for the rest of the day. Just going, going, going. He said, I have already had my intention met. And Dr. Howell, it came home to me that that man is in a better position than many people, because now he's able to go over, assess what he has done. He's able to gain clarity. He's able to find some peace of mind. He's able to do so many things, and he has still worked what he intended for that day. Maybe everybody can't do that, but I think that's an excellent principle to think about. Set your intention, and once you reach your intention, give yourself some space and time to gain, to lessen some things. What would you add to that, Dr. Howell? The benefit.
Well, I will say that a lot of people don't understand how much your thoughts influence your emotions, and your emotions influence your actions, and actions repeated influences your habits. And so you have to be very careful what you think. But what a lot of people aren't aware of, and what I do in my training, is I teach people to identify how their perspective influences their thoughts. Because if you are in a bad mental state, even the best of things might come through your senses as negative, because your filter is negative. So someone's being nice to you, you see it as them wanting something from you. Or they have an angle. I got to be suspicious. And so you look at the world suspiciously, because you think that everyone is trying to come at you at an angle. And so your perspective affects your thoughts, but it also affects what comes through your mind. And you said that a lot, because you said what is inside will come out. And that's a law called the law of transmutation. As a man thinketh, so is he. So whatever you think on the inside would come out or radiate outside of you. So if you see people avoiding you, it's because people don't like your energy. If you see people coming towards you and flocking towards you, it's because they like your energy. And so what are you doing as a leader, as a manager in an organization, to make sure that you are harnessing the proper energy? As you said, what is inside will come outside. And that's why Jim Collins was saying we need the right people on the bus. And the last part, the second caveat that he said about the bus is we make the people who are on the wrong bus feel so uncomfortable that they jump off the bus. So if you are in the wrong organization, we make our good energy so uncomfortable to you that you leave. We don't force you to leave. You leave on your own will because you realize you are a square peg in a round hole. You want to leave. And so when you know what your goals are, you can achieve them faster. You can attract people that are like-minded. When you can reduce your stress like that Uber driver, when you reach your goals, you don't get on the proverbial hamster wheel and keep running. You learn to relax and practice gratitude. Enhance motivation. All those little successes that you make along the way will enhance your motivation to keep pushing when things get harder. And so there are a lot of benefits of intentional focus, not to mention the fact that you're not running all over the place, getting nothing accomplished.
Wow.
Because you're focusing on one thing at a time.
You got that, Dr. Howell. I know we have to wrap up right here for this week, but we never wrap up any of these sessions without giving 1 or 2 or 3 strategies that we would recommend for people to use to build intentional focus. And I'm going to give my parting words. I'm going to say, get in touch with your inner self. That's the inner focus. And in that inner focus, practice silence, gratitude, mindfulness. And then when you start with the outer focus, try to reduce the distractions in your environment, because we live in a society where there are so many distractions, and distractions are an enemy to focus. And when you do that, seek to focus on one thing at a time. Don't carry 10 and 15 things in your focus. Finish one, start the other. I mean, we talk about multitasking. Multitasking is nonsense. And try to be present in every moment. That's the other focus. I keep breaking it down into the inner, the outer, and the other focus. Because when you're present in the moment, you will be able to see the other person. Because if you're not present, you can't use emotional intelligence at all. So get in touch with your inner self. That's the inner focus. Practice silence, gratitude, mindfulness. Then for the outer focus, try to reduce the distractions in your environment and focus on one thing at a time. And then don't forget others. Try to be more present in the moment, remembering that this world is not made up of you alone. There are many others in this world. Your final closing remarks and your strategies, Dr. Howell.
Yes, I mean, you covered a lot of them. You talked about mindfulness. Mindfulness is being now in the present. Don't look at the past. Don't look at the future. Practice on learning from the past, planning for the future, but working now in your focus to achieve what you need to achieve. Secondly, technology is a tool, not a distraction. And so if you find yourself distracted by technology, find ways to put it down. Find ways to get rid of it. When I find myself on technology too much, I take a 2-week break from it. And that's my punishment. That's my reward for over abusing technology. Next thing, set SMART goals.
Yes.
If you don't know what they are, look them up. SMART goals are specific and measurable. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but another thing that I like is prioritizing tasks. And if you want to know how to do that better, look up the Eisenhower matrix. It breaks tasks down according to urgent tasks and important tasks. And so look that up. That is a very useful tool that you can use. And then last but not least, set routines. So if you have a 4-hour workday, you know that technology is one of your vices, set time within those 8 hours in a day. Maybe in the 4-hour mark, you can set aside 15 minutes to splurge on your technology, and then you get back to work. But if you know that you work best at 3 o'clock, don't have any distractions between 3 and 5. If you know you work best between 8 and 11 or between 9 and 11, don't have any distractions between 9 and 11. You know, and so you have to be mindful about having routines. If you say, hey, I'm going to have a meeting for 15 minutes, let it be 15 to 16 minutes, and then you give people back their time. Don't say 15 minutes and it's an hour long. Then people don't want to show up to your meetings, and then you get upset when people don't want to show up, because people also have routines and people also have guidelines and deadlines that they are living by. So you have to be mindful of that. Be flexible of other people's goals and time frames. And I'm done with that for today.
Wow. That was such an excellent way to end, Dr. Howell. We talked about life and leadership, the power of intentional focus. And we talked a bit about the hedgehog concept. Dr. Howell talked about that, and that's such a powerful concept. He closed with the Eisenhower matrix. Those are spot on. I hope that if you have not been on the live, you will take a listen back. And please, if you have, put hashtag replay so we can know that you're listening back after we have closed. And I hope that you will take something away from here today that you will apply to your own life, because intentional focus is a sure path to success. Be intentional today in everything that you do. Once again, I am Dr. Janice, and with me is Dr. Howell. We do this each Friday at noon Eastern Time, where we speak on another topic and help you to build your life on a firm foundation. God bless you. You have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and see you here next week, same place, same time, as we talk about another topic. God bless you.
Bye-bye, everyone.